the CCJ. Honorable Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders, President of the Caribbean Court of Justice and judges of the Caribbean Court of Justice. Honorable heads of judiciaries of the Caribbean region. Honorable Mr. Justice Peter Jamadar, Judge of the Caribbean Court of Justice and the Chairman of the Caribbean Association of Judicial Officers, the CAJO. Retired judges of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. Honorable Attorneys General of each of the OECS member states and the territories. Chief and senior magistrates and magistrates of each of the OECS member states and the territories. Sir Claire K. Roberts, KCN, QC, keynote speaker this afternoon. Directors of public prosecutions of each of the OECS member states and the territories. Solicitors General of each of the OECS member states and the territories. Mrs. Michelle John Theobald, Chief Registrar, and Mr. Carlos Cameron Michel, Deputy Chief Registrar of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. Registrars and Deputy and Assistant Registrars of the High Court of each of the OECS member states and the territories. Mr. Gregory Girard, Court Administrator of the Court's headquarters, and Mr. Francis Letang, Deputy Court Administrator of the Court's headquarters, and Court Administrators of each of the High Court offices of the OECS member states and the territories. Ms. Jean Dyer, President of the OECS Bar Association. Presidents of the constituent bar associations of each of the OECS member states and the territories. Learned members of the inner bar and outer bar of the OECS member states and the territories. Commissioners of police of each of the OECS member states and territories. Staff of the court's headquarters and court offices in each of the member states and the territories. Distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon to you. What an extensive and a distinguished list of prominent, eminent jurists and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Very good afternoon to you and a warm welcome to the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court's 55th anniversary lecture. My name is Garfield Burford. I'm Director for News, Sports and Current Affairs at the Antigua Barbuda Broadcasting Services, ABS TV Radio, which is carrying this event live. And it is my seminal honor this afternoon to be your moderator. Now, this is obviously a powerful and auspicious occasion with an audience to match because you just heard the extensive protocol list earlier. It's easily the greatest gathering of legal luminaries, Sir Claire, and distinguished officials assembled this year and perhaps ever throughout the court's 55 years of existence. Give you a round of applause for that, please. It is obvious that it is commensurate with the court's prestige and its standing in the OECS. Well, the highlight of this august occasion is the lecture which will be delivered by none other than Sir Claire Roberts, Queen's Counsel, and his theme will be the ECSC Batting for Justice, 55 years and not out. Sir Claire, I spoke to you earlier and I indicated that that was a very apt theme. Excellent that you use the cricket analogy, and I'll be using it throughout if you don't mind. Well, a cricketing analogy, perhaps we should say best suited for the glory days of West Indies cricket rather than the contemporary period of West Indies cricket. Oh, how we are nostalgic about those glory days of West Indies cricket. May they return soon. Fingers crossed. Well, if we were to extend the cricketing analogy, the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court has played its part with aplomb, building an innings of jurisprudence the sub-region and the entire Caribbean civilization can be justly proud of, never edging to be caught in the slips. If we were to cite the title of C.L.R. James's book, the court has gone beyond the boundary in extending the frontiers to ensure the efficient and expeditious administration of justice in the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. The court has remained as constant as the Northern Star in the fidelity to its task, while being nimble to adjust to the dynamism of the times. There is indeed nothing as constant as change in life, and the court has been acting in accord with that. Now, it is a credit and encomium for the court that such distinguished minds in the region and worldwide have gathered in person and virtually for this event this afternoon. And we do say worldwide because we have an audience here in person. There's an audience in St. Lucia, the court's headquarters, and there's an audience right across the world. So it is now my distinct privilege to ask Her Ladyship, the Honorable Dame Janice Pereira to, in line with the cricketing analogy and the metaphors we're using this afternoon, to open the batting this afternoon by delivering the official welcome. Her leadership is, of course, the court's first female Chief Justice, who was appointed in 2012. She also has the distinction of being the longest serving Chief Justice. It is my honor and signal honor and privilege to turn over to her leadership. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Burford. And it is quite a feat, I think, coming after those opening remarks by you. Firstly, let me adopt the protocol which was so well established by you and in the interest of time. And as you have said in the line of cricket, the batting, I will begin with my opening remarks to welcome everyone here this evening. And so, adopting the protocol, good evening, everyone. It is my great pleasure to welcome you, our viewers from across the length and breadth of the OECS and beyond, to the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court's 55th anniversary lecture, and also the launch of the court's Facebook page. Events like this undoubtedly require great dedication and hard work to come to fruition. I wish, therefore, to express my gratitude to our lecture planning committee for bringing us together for this significant occasion. I also wish to bid a special welcome to the judicial officers of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, or justices of appeal, judges, masters, magistrates, and registrars, and indeed to all of our specially invited guests from across the region. I also extend a warm welcome to the members of the inner and outer bars of the OECS member states and territories who are present. It is not very often that judicial officers and members of the bar have an opportunity to participate collectively in such a focused forum. This, to my mind, makes events like this that much more special. As you know, the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court observed the 55th anniversary of its establishment yesterday, the 27th of February, 2022, and will continue to celebrate this milestone throughout the week with a number of events, all under the theme, the ECSC at 55, navigating, redefining, and reimagining the future. The theme is quite fitting. The past 2 years with the pandemic have seen widespread and unprecedented operational change in the administration of justice in the OECS. Digital platforms and other innovations have in many ways become essential features of our court system, as these have single-handedly allowed, in large measure, for the continued administration of justice. Whilst we all hope to see the end of this pandemic sooner rather than later, it has nudged us into a future from which there is no return to the old and traditional ways of fulfilling our mission in delivering justice. With the success of many of the changes which have been implemented, I think the court has demonstrated that it is now, more than ever before, committed to reimagining the delivery of justice to the people of the region. For this reason, I think the court has much to celebrate at 55. And so yesterday, we kicked off our week of celebratory activities, which a church service held at the Castries Seventh-day Adventist Church in St. Lucia. And what a good time of song and praise that was, and thanks. This lecture this evening is our second event in our week of activities and will be delivered live, as we are now, from the state of Antigua and Barbuda. And we broadcast to viewers from across the globe via UWI TV and YouTube, with the assistance of the Antigua and Barbuda broadcasting services, for which we are grateful. Many of us, myself included, join in this, of course, via Zoom, this Zoom platform. This hybrid format allows for a more interactive experience and is indeed reflective of the court continuing to embrace technology to function as normally as possible in a virtual environment. In fact, a huge gain of using a format like this is the larger and greater reach for all of our viewers or stakeholders, and also those persons who use our court services, because you merely have to log on from wherever you are to participate. So despite the altered and somewhat unfamiliar format, I have no doubt that this lecture is highly anticipated by all of you. At this juncture, I wish to bid a warm welcome to our lecturer this evening, Sir Clare K. Roberts, KCN, QC, who hails from the member state of Antigua and Barbuda. Of course, the first time I met Sir Clare, it was in my own home territory of the Virgin Islands. I thank you, Sir Clare, for agreeing to be our lecturer for this signal event. The chosen title of your lecture, the ECSC Batting for Justice, 55 years and not out, is one which I am sure has piqued everyone's interest. Being Caribbeaners, the cricket analogy is quite apt, as has been said by our moderator, Mr. Burford. I am quite eager, as I am sure you all are, to hear Sir Clare's take on the state of play, given his wealth of experience. And so without taking up any more time, I take this opportunity to once again welcome all of you to the ECSC 55th anniversary lecture and the launch of the court's Facebook page. I ask that you lend your ear for what will be an enjoyable and thought-provoking lecture. The launch segment of this evening's program promises to be just as exciting. So I ask you to stay tuned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief Justice Dame Janice Pereira. Her leadership was playing an innings of class as usual. Thank you much, really appreciate it. So the pitch has been laid, the weather conditions are perfect, and the bowling promises to be friendly, right? As we welcome another Queen's Counsel. So the time has now come for our lecture this afternoon to be delivered by Sir Clare Roberts, Queen's Counsel. I now ask Mrs. Michelle John Theobalds, the Chief Registrar of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, to introduce our distinguished, venerable guest speaker. Over to you, Mrs. John Theobalds.
Good afternoon and thank you. My lady, Dame Janice Pereira, Honorable Chief Justice, Justices of Appeal, permit me to recognize President of the CCJ, Justice Adrian Saunders, distinguished guests. Good afternoon. Otherwise, may I adopt the protocol list already established. Sir Clare Roberts, KCN, Queen's Counsel. Sir Clare is a former Attorney General of Antigua and Barbuda, British Virgin Islands, and Montserrat. He was the Chief Parliamentary Counsel and Solicitor General of Antigua and Barbuda. Sir Clare was also an independent senator in the Senate of Antigua and Barbuda. He has acted as High Court Judge in Anguilla, Nevis, Grenada, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. He was appointed as one of Her Majesty's Council in 2007. Sir Clare is the founding partner of Roberts & Co., Attorneys at Law, which he founded in Antigua and Barbuda in 1986, and is also the founder of Human Rights for All, which is a non-profit organization that aims to promote and defend human rights in the region. Sir Clare was a member of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights for 8 years and had the distinction of leading the commission as its president. At the commission, Sir Clare was the first special rapporteur on the rights of Afro-descendants and against racial discrimination and racism in this hemisphere. Sir Clare has spearheaded the fight by the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights Against Racial Discrimination in the Hemisphere. He has studied and reported on the situation of Afro-descendants in Brazil, Colombia, the Caribbean, including Cuba, the United States, and Canada. In 2021, Sir Claire was one of the commissioners on the International Commission of Inquiry on Systematic Racist Police Violence against the people of African descent in the United States. The commission published its report in March 2021. Sir Claire has commented extensively on human rights issues in the press in Antigua and Barbuda and further afield. His blog is called Afro Descendants Unite. In 2006, Sir Claire was knighted for his work in human rights, and it's no surprise, and his service to the legal profession and youth. Sir Claire is a 6th degree karate black belt. He founded and runs a program called Karate Plus, which seeks to mold the minds and bodies of young people. Kiai, my ladies, my lords, distinguished guests, please make welcome our star batsman, Sir Claire Roberts, KCN, QC. Welcome him.
Thank you very much, Chief Registrar. Our moderator having made me thoroughly nervous with his long list of so distinguished persons. I will adopt the list that he used. Permit me, though, to especially recognize our Chief Justice, Dame Pereira, our judges, the Queen's Counsel and Antigua present audience, and other distinguished attendees. I thank Her Excellency Dame Janice M. Pereira, Chief Justice of the Eastern Caribbean, for her kind invitation for me to give this bench and bar lecture as part of the celebration of 55 years of existence of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. I consider it a signal honor to have been invited to make this presentation. The topic, as you have heard, is the ECSC Batting for Justice, 55 years and not out. My suggestion for the topic was the role of the ECSC in a justice system of the future. But even I thought that topic a little drab and unattractive. I therefore have to thank Dwayne Brissett and his team for coming up with the topic for this lecture. You will note the cricketing imagery implied in the title. 55 is not a bad score in any form of cricket. 2020, 50 overs, or the long-form red ball test cricket. But it is not a great score. In cricket, we tend to remember and commemorate centuries. If you are a Lara or Richards, triple or double centuries. As institutions in our region go, 55 years of existence is like a double century in cricketing terms. The ECSC, at 55 not out, stands tall among the long-living regional institutions such as the University of the West Indies, 73 not out, Caribbean Development Bank, 52 not out, The Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, 40 not out. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, 37 not out. And the Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority, 18 not out. Still in cricketing terms, 55 would be considered the foundation for a big score. And so in respect of the ECSC, the foundation would have been laid for a great contribution to the life and times of our people. You will hear more about that foundation, particularly the exploits of our current Chief Justice, Dame Janice Pereira, later in this presentation. I suggest that the ECSC is poised to play a heroic role, a loftier role than its day-to-day operation of solving disputes, helping to manage the relationship between the branches of government and between the government and the people. There is a West African symbol called Sankofa. Sankofa is a word in the Twi language of Ghana that means go back and get it. It is symbolized by a bird with its feet facing forward and its head looking back. The spirit of Sankofa encompasses taking from the past what is good and bringing it into the present to make progress in the future. In the same way, the ECSC should use the 55 years of experience and wisdom to drive the institution forward in the future and continuing to improve the lives and well-being of the inhabitants of the region. In this presentation, I will start at the end by summarizing what I wish to present to you in this lecture, celebrating 55 years of service by the ECSC to our region. My main message is that the ECSC is set to play a key role in the future development of the region it serves. In support of this thesis, I will delve into the following areas: the leitmotif, a description of the people served by this great institution, a brush with slavery and colonialism. I suggest that given its unique background, ECSC should play a pivotal role in the promotion and protection of human rights and protecting democracy in the region. I advocate a new division of the court, Human Rights Division of the ECSC. I will look at technology and the justice system. I will also look at a future justice system denuded of the vestiges of colonialism. I pay a well-deserved tribute to the stalwarts who worked in the justice system over the 55 years. And lastly, I make a daring hope. Let me start with the leitmotif, the background, the theme, if you like. It is said that those who deny the lessons of the past are doomed to repeat them. Those who fail to recognize that the past is a shaper of the present, and the hand of yesterday continues to write on the slate of today, leave themselves vulnerable by not realizing the impact of influences which do serve to shape their lives. I am convinced of the truth of the thesis of Naim Akbar that he expresses in his essay, Breaking the Chains of Psychological Slavery, and I quote, "The chattel slavery of Africans in America for over 300 years serves as one of the saddest commentaries of man's inhumanity to man. The tales of this period of our history are so brutal and morbid that they will arouse vehement hostilities at the very thought of what occurred. The level of cruelty was incomparable to anything recorded in modern history, including the Nazi atrocities at Auschwitz, which were fleeting and direct, destroying bodies, but essentially leaving the collective mind intact. The protracted and intensive atrocities of slavery have had a lingering effect, and pain of the times past continues to call out from the genetic memories of those whose ancestors survived the test of slavery. As cruel and painful as chattel slavery was, it could be exceeded only by a worse form of slavery, the slavery that captures the mind and imprisons the motivation, perception, aspiration, and identity in a web of anti-self, generating a personal and collective self-destruction, is more cruel than the shackles on the wrists and ankles. The slavery that feeds on the mind, invading the soul of man, destroying his loyalties to himself and establishing allegiance to forces which destroy him, is an even worse form of capture. The influences that permit an illusion of freedom, liberation, and self-determination, while tenaciously holding one's mind in subjugation, is the folly of only the sadistic. I firmly believe that the deep psychological damage of slavery still influences our conduct to each other and to areas of justice, leadership, and even religion. As Aimé Césaire points out, after all, we are dealing with the only race which is denied even the notion of humanity. The colonized were seen as incompetent, negligent, and lazy. We were termed uncivilized. But Césaire reminds us, the men they took away knew how to build houses, govern empires, erect cities, cultivate fields, mine for metals, weave cotton, forge steel. Their religion had its own beauty, based on mystical connections with the founder of the city. Their customs were pleasing, built on unity, kindness, respect for age. No coercion, only mutual assistance, the joy of living, a free acceptance of discipline. I am suggesting that with the situation of the clientele that it serves being what it is, the ECSC has an obligation, I put it as strongly as that, to be a fierce protector and promoter of human rights. But what are these human rights of which I speak? John Milton wrote, "Our liberty is not Caesar's. It is a blessing we have received from God himself. It is what we are born to. To lay this down to Caesar's feet, at which we derive not from him, which we are not beholden to him for, were an unworthy action and degrading of our very nature. Human rights are rights inherent to all human beings, regardless of our race, place of origin, political opinions or affiliation, sex, creed, or language, or any other social distinction. Human rights are described as civil, and political and economic, social and cultural. These rights are said to be all interrelated, interdependent, and indivisible. It is to be noted that the fundamental or essential rights are not given to us by the Constitution or any international convention. They are part of what makes us human beings. As the American Declaration of the Rights and Duties of Man puts it, the essential rights of man are based upon the attributes of his human personality. Note that the Constitution and the American Declaration and conventions all declare and recognize these rights as attributes of our humanity. Perhaps the best way of understanding what fundamental or essential human rights are is to imagine life without them. Imagine for a moment that you could be arbitrarily deprived of life. You could be tortured by state entities and punished without being convicted of any crime. You could be subjected to slavery or involuntary servitude. You could be subjected to arbitrary arrest or imprisonment. You would have no right to privacy. You would have no right to practice the religion of your choice or to change your religion. Your freedom of expression and of association would be curtailed even more than acceptable. You would have no right to a name, nationality, to raise a family. You would have no right to property, and you could not move about your country as you wished. And you would have no right to vote or to run for politics. What I just described is what our forebears withstood during hundreds of years of slavery. You begin to see why we in the Caribbean should be particularly passionate about the protection of human rights, and why I make the plea for the ECSC of the future to be the beacon of promotion and protection of human rights. Given the clientele I've described above, I advocate a human rights division of the ECSC, where access is less complicated, to signal that the court will be at the forefront of ensuring that its clients, the people of this region, will not go back into slavery or be subjected to any new form of slavery. We have a unique story where descendants of the enslaved and colonialized now rule themselves and have successfully managed their economy, collaborated on a banking system, the ECCB, civil aviation, ECCAA, sadly until recently, regional air travel, LIAT, and a justice system with the ECSC at its core, moving the society to higher heights. The court will play a key role in grasping our opportunity to create our Wakanda, though I note that with all the advances in science and technology, the Wakandans had not evolved enough to avoid war. In continuing its innings, the ECSC will be at the core. It will be the model, the bright spot, the beacon of a force protecting human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. Visualize with me the creatively built edifice housing the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Human Rights Division in one of the member states of the court. A symbol of the court as protector and promoter of human rights in the region, representing a model institution in the region and the world, where through the work of the court, a people became acutely conscious of their rights and responsibilities and made Aimé Césaire smile in heaven. Aimé Césaire was a Martinican so we can claim him as being from the region, though of a different colonizer. The justice system must continue to play its part in protecting and promoting the rights declared in our constitutions. The pandemic brought about a very limited consciousness of human rights. There's now a golden opportunity to spread the word about rights. I see a role for the justice system in a mass sensitization about human rights, but also about responsibilities. I see the Chief Justice and her justices using the social media and making television appearances, spreading the message. We need all hands to the plow. And what better hands than those of our trusted judicial system? I am imagining an expanded mandate for the Judicial Education Institute as part of this outreach program. I see the human rights committees of the bar associations in the region, along with the ECSC Bar Association and OCBA, giving priority to sensitizing all and sundry in the region as to their human rights and responsibilities. I come now to technology, including the magistrate courts. The COVID protocols mandated to save lives and prevent serious illness and hospitalization. For example, social distancing and mandatory vaccination hastened the use of technology in the justice system. For instance, Zoom was used to enable distance meetings, since face-to-face hearings and trials became impractical and downright dangerous. The e-litigation portal came into its own, providing the means for safe and efficient filings, including submissions and even probate applications. Truth to tell, our Chief Justice had already embarked on the road of technology to lessen delay and increase efficiency. But the pandemic hastened the process. As it is said, necessity is the mother of invention, or, as I like better, force make water go uphill. The Chief Justice has declared that we will not go back. The court will stay on the technology path going forward. Indeed, she's asking the governments of the region to legislate to catch up with the technological changes that are here to stay and will most assuredly remain part of the future of the ECSC and of the justice system. We all must support the Chief Justice in her call to action by the governments of the region. The Chief Justice has declared that these technological advances will be unfolded at every level of the justice system, from the magistrate court, high court in its various divisions, and the Court of Appeal. The use of digital transcripts must be legislated to cut the delay in appeals, especially criminal appeals. There is an issue to which the Chief Justice drew attention. This is an issue to which the Chief Justice drew attention just last month. It is unacceptable in this day and age of technology that convicted persons on many occasions serve their time before their appeals can be heard, all because of the dependence on antiquated methods of preparing transcripts. Lawyers and the public in general must get used to digital tenderings, judgments, and transcripts. To support the wave of technological advances, I urge the governments of the region to put at the top of their legislative agenda legislation to authorize the use of digital notarization of documents and digital signatures. I know work is being done in this respect in some member states and territories. The message is that the future justice system will be technologically driven, and a paperless justice system will be a reality. I could not put it better than our Chief Justice, Dame Pereira, at 42 minutes into her address at the opening of the 2022 law year. Chief Justice said, if we are able to continue to modernize the court processes and put in place the mechanisms made possible by use of ICT, allowing for even greater accessibility, then it would be true to say that the justice system, notwithstanding the pandemic, but rather in spite of it, has been reimagined in ways that will better serve all the people of the ECS region, in ways that will ensure its sustainability, efficiency, and accountability. These, in turn, will promote public confidence and sustain the court's authority in our perennial quest for a more just society. We note with joy that today the court is we will feel the presence of the court on Facebook, and I hope Instagram from today. Now let us look at a future justice system denuded of vestiges of colonialism. William Dimas, president of the Caribbean Development Bank, as he then was, wrote in 1977 in a paper entitled Human Rights and Their Promotion, and I quote, "But there is a paradox, indeed the supreme irony, that the West Indian countries are content with having perhaps the most vital aspect of their judicial system, the right of final judicial appeal, located in the metropolis outside the Caribbean. An essential precondition, both logical and moral, for the establishment of a Human Rights Commission in the English-speaking Caribbean must be the replacement of the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council as the final court of appeal by a West Indian or Commonwealth Caribbean Court of Appeal. Only then will it be possible to think of a Human Rights Commission for the English-speaking Caribbean. Lawyers and other well-intentioned persons cannot have it both ways. They cannot, on the one hand, argue for the retention of the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council outside of the region in London, and at the same time urge the need for the establishment of a Human Rights Commission within the Caribbean. William Dimas must be turning in his grave that nearly 45 years later, we are still having this discussion about our final court of appeal. A discussion which it seems to me will only end when we are pushed out of the committee room afforded to us in England as our highest court. A future justice system must operate in an environment of confident people, demanding the removal of all vestiges of colonialism that militate against us realizing our goals and usher us into the future. So we must correct the anomaly, the illogicality, and frankly, the embarrassment of that although the Caribbean Court of Justice has been in existence since 2005, only one of the member states and territory of the ECS, Dominica, has the CCJ as its final court of appeal. And I ask myself, is it by chance that of all the ECS countries, only Dominica took the enlightened decision to go republic on independence? We cannot be seen to be a people that sells to its populace the main argument that we cannot join the CCJ in its appellate jurisdiction until we repair physically the magistrate courts, as was urged in one island. We must push past the conditioning of self-hate that allows us, even when we are convinced that the institution is as sound as can be, to find some silly excuse not to use it. And this is a court which we have capitalized. Our justice system of the near future must have the CCJ as the final court of appeal for all member states and territories of the OECS region. What did my favorite poet, Langston Hughes, say about a dream deferred? What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load. Or does it explode? Let not this dream of patriating our final court of appeal and working with one court system and developing a Caribbean jurisprudence out of our common history and experience explode for being deferred too long. Langston Hughes in another poem said, there's liable to be confusion in a dream deferred. My sad prediction is that the dream will be deferred until the UK government stop granting us the services as being a duplication of what we have for ourselves. The awful irony is that the UK has put its judicial system in order by making their final court of appeal ostensibly independent and not part of the House of Lords, by providing for a Supreme Court along the lines of the CCJ. So we were there before them, and yet we defer. Now I would like to pay tribute to the men and women who in large part made the splendid innings of 55 not out possible. On the occasion of the 55th anniversary of the ECSC, we must recognize all those who toiled in the system to make it the success it has been and continues to be. It is through their outstanding efforts that there is an abiding trust in the justice system. A big thank you for the yeoman service of all former Chief Justices and our current Chief Justice, the Justices of Appeal, the judges, masters, magistrates, registrars, deputy registrars, administrators, and court staff at head offices in St. Lucia and in each and every member state and territory, and over the 55 years then and now. For those who have passed, may their souls continue to rest in peace. I make bold to speak for the region and say, thank you all. This region owes a special debt of gratitude to our current Chief Justice, Dame Janice M. Pereira, for so calmly steering the ship of justice over the dangerous waters of this pandemic and other not so obvious dangers. We have benefited from her brilliance, her creativity, and quiet confidence, which have marked her leadership over approaching a decade. Our Chief Justice led in modernizing the justice system. She has reshaped it and enhanced it. She has ensured that the system is digitally driven. Chief Justice Dame Pereira saw to establishing the family division and its family rules. She was responsible for revamping and modernizing of the Code of Judicial Conduct, governing the judicial officers to include the use of the social media, the sentencing guidelines, and the review of the civil procedure rules, which is still ongoing. In getting all of this done, our Chief Justice put her judges to work off the bench to participate in committees working to improve the operation of the court. Madam Chief Justice, thank you from all the stakeholders and the people of the region you serve with such excellence. I also wish to congratulate our Chief Justice on achieving the accolade of being recognized as a pioneering Caribbean woman jurist by the CCJ Academy of Law. And now my daring hope. Dare I hope with one justice system, one space, that the example of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court over 55 years could inspire the people and leaders of the Eastern Caribbean to have one nation, whatever we call it. Why not the United Republic of the Eastern Caribbean? With the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, with its Human Rights Division, still batting at 100 years, not out. Were this an in-person lecture, we would no doubt have ended this lecture with a toast to the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court with some wine. Nevertheless, I ask you to raise your voices with me in shouting out loud, "Long live the ECSC. Keep batting, never be out." Long live the ECSC. Keep batting, never be out. Thank you very much.
What a powerful message. What a powerful message. Another round of applause, please, for Zacchaeus Roberts. Zacchaeus Roberts, KCN, QC, a united, oh, he says a republic, possibly Republic of the Eastern Caribbean.
Republics.
Republics of the Eastern. Extraordinary. Thought-provoking, and I'm pretty sure that that message is now resonating around not only the region, not only among the member states of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, but around the world, because we have a global audience, thanks to ABS television and radio, as well as our UE television. It is being ruminated on and cogitated on, and long may it perhaps inspire Sir Claire action on this score. Thank you so much. What a powerful message. Really appreciate it. So Sir Claire certainly hit the ball out of the park, and I'm sure the spectators are now picking up the ball as we speak. All right, it's now time for the court to go live on Facebook. Sir Claire would have spoken about Facebook being perhaps and Instagram coming up hopefully next, Sir Claire thinks, and possibly Twitter as well, who knows. Well, it's now time for, as I said, the court to go live on Facebook as the ECSC is engaging and reaching its publics on social media. We often hear about an official launch of something. Well, this afternoon, still afternoon, it will be an official click this afternoon. So none other than Chief Justice, Her Ladyship Dame Janice M. Pereira, will do the honors of clicking to go live for the Facebook page for the court. Undoubtedly one of the most consequential clicks in the history of the court. Well, it is said, I don't want to be hyperbolic on this, but it's said that one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Well, if we could tailor that a little bit and extrapolate it, one small click for the court, a myriad of clicks to follow among the Facebook universe. It will indeed be a brave new world of engagement with the court's public. So, Madam Chief Justice, Her Ladyship, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Burford. I am now going to share my screen, and I must tell everyone that I feel now as excited as I felt when I did the very first click for the commencement of our e-litigation portal in 2018, it was, I think, starting with St. Lucia. So now bear with me. I have just a little task to now share my screen with you and then to make that click. And so, yes, I think everyone now sees my screen. And I will now click on our Facebook page. There we are.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Chief Justice Dame Janice Pereira, Her Ladyship, doing the honors there of clicking, as I said, one of the most consequential clicks for the court in its history. This is a message from the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court on why it has actually ventured into the social media sphere. Facebook is one of the largest and most recognized social media networks worldwide, making it an excellent entry point for the ECSC to make its debut into the social media sphere, the court having been around for over 5.5 decades. Well, pretty much a day over 5.5 decades. We're aware of that. We're aware that social media comes with its challenges. However, as a regional institution, we believe that the time is fitting to take advantage of the myriad of opportunities that social media and Facebook can provide to the organization. The main objective of the court's Facebook page is to connect with our diverse stakeholders, while at the same time providing information that will tell the story of this great institution, which has been around for over 5.5 decades. The court's Facebook page will also allow for flexibility in organic content creation that targets stakeholders according to their age and interest. Finally, the Facebook page will also provide another medium for stakeholders to interact with the court. The ECSC is proud to launch its Facebook page, and at this time, as I said, Her Ladyship has done the honors of ensuring that she's launched that click to ensure that the Facebook page can go live. And I now invite everybody here present and also virtually and across the global audience to frequently visit the page, to first like the page, and also to frequently visit it and be sure to like its content. As the court has indicated, it will be another medium in which the ECSC plans to communicate with you, our stakeholders. So please like away in terms of the court. And Chief Justice, any particular word on Instagram, as Sir Claire is advocating?
Yes, indeed, that is coming next. I can tell you, I have been at this in relation to having our Facebook page launched for quite some time. So I am very, very happy to see that we have reached this milestone. And certainly the next will be the use of Twitter and Instagram, as Sir Claire has advocated that we must go. And we will certainly be going there.
Excellent. What a grand announcement. Thank you so very much, Chief Justice. Excellent. We look forward with bated breath for the time when Instagram will also be launched, and perhaps there'll be another massive click here, another consequential click for Instagram. Well, perhaps we will invite Sir Claire to launch the Instagram page because he's been a passionate advocate for Instagram. Well, it is now time for, and it's also my seminal honor and privilege to call upon the distinguished Mr. Carlos Michel, the Deputy Chief Registrar, to deliver vote of thanks this evening. Over to you, Deputy Chief Registrar.
Good evening, everyone. Her Ladyship, the Honorable Dame Janice Pereira, Chief Justice, Justice of Appeal, judges and masters of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, Honorable Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders, President of the Caribbean Court of Justice. Permit me, please, to adopt the protocol that has already been established otherwise, and to basically give these closing remarks on behalf of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. It has indeed been a wonderful and enlightening evening listening to the lecture delivered by Sir Clare on the occasion of the court's 55th anniversary. This court has truly been batting for justice for the last 55 years, and Sir Clare, in his usual eloquent fashion, has brought that to life tonight. I also hope that everyone felt the same excitement that I did to see the court take another step as a transparent and accessible court for all by its launch of its first social media page. Having said that, I consider it an honor and a privilege to have been asked to extend a vote of thanks on this momentous occasion on behalf of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. First and foremost, I wish to extend thanks to our Chief Justice, Her Ladyship, the Honorable Dame Janice Pereira, DBE, LLD, for her warm welcome remarks for this evening's proceedings and for her visionary leadership of this court. I also wish to express our appreciation to all the judicial officers of the court, the Justices of Appeal, High Court judges, masters, as well as the members of the magistracy for attending this 55th anniversary lecture. To the Honorable Attorneys General of the member states and territories of the OECS who are present, thank you for your attendance and for your support of the court. And to our distinguished guests across the OECS and beyond, thank you for taking the time to join with us in the celebration of the court's 55th anniversary. To our keynote speaker, Sir Clare K. Roberts, KCN, QC, thank you for delivering such a thoughtful and engaging lecture. I am sure most, if not all of us listening tonight, listening to your effusive and exposition of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court were inspired by your ideas on the more pivotal role the court is poised to play in the future. The apt cricket references no doubt made the lecture that much more captivating. Thank you, Sir Clare. To the members of the 55th Anniversary Committee, thank you for your hard work and your time in making this lecture and launch a reality. To the Chief Registrar, Mrs. Michelle John Thibbles, our Court Administrator, Mr. Gregory Gerard, and Deputy Court Administrator, Mr. Francis Letang, Mr. Dwayne Brissett, Information Services Manager, our Information Technology Manager, Mr. Mark Ernest, our Human Resources Manager, Mr. Dylan Billy, Mr. Stephen Corrington, Executive Legal Assistant to the Chief Justice, and to all members of staff at the court's headquarters who assisted in planning this event. To Mrs. Cecile Hill, Registrar of the High Court, Ms. Tracy Samuel and Mr. Kayode Omar, Deputy Registrars of the High Court in Antigua and Barbuda, and the entire team from the Antigua and Barbuda High Court, we thank you for all your hard work in assisting with the on-the-ground logistics of this lecture in Antigua. Your efforts have not gone unnoticed. I also wish to extend special thanks to Mr. Brissett and his team, including Mr. Rejan Montout, Website Content Officer, and Mr. Demetrius Charles, Website Administrator, for their hard work in making the ECSC foray into the social media space a reality. The layout and content of the Facebook page, in my view, meets the highest standards, and no doubt members of the public will appreciate this new way of engaging with the court. I would also like to extend gratitude to our moderator, Mr. Garfield Burford, for doing a remarkable job in ensuring the proceedings progress smoothly, and to Ms. Erna Brathwaite and her team from the Antigua and Barbuda Broadcasting Services for assisting us with the recording of the lecture. To Ms. Janet Carew, Managing Director of UETV, and her team at UETV, I thank you for broadcasting this event to many of our stakeholders who were unable to join in person, and to a wider grouping of audience across the OECS. Your continued support to the court over the years is greatly appreciated. I express our gratitude to the members of the Inner and Outer Bar of Antigua and Barbuda who are attending in person, and the members of the Bar of the OECS attending virtually. Thank you for your attendance and continued support. A special thank you goes out to Mr. Ron Mattis, who assisted in the designing of the flyers and invitations for the lecture. Once again, on behalf of Her Ladyship, the Honorable Dame Janice Pereira, Chief Justice, I extend my deepest appreciation to all of you who have in various ways contributed to this lecture and to the court's 55th anniversary celebrations. At the risk of sounding cliche, we could not have done this without you. Thank you.
And thank you too as well, Mr. Deputy Chief Registrar, for the vote of thanks, Mr. Carlos Michel, who obviously, if we were to use one final cricketing analogy, staying with the metaphor of cricket, he did a very good job as a night watchman. Excellent, very good. Indeed, I like that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished jurists, it has been an extraordinary afternoon into evening. This is a court which has already celebrated its half century and has been batting on with confidence and with aplomb, nimble in its footwork to counter the metaphorical bowling in the form of the challenges of the age. The court has seen tremendous change in our Caribbean civilization and the global milieu. During its 55 years, just look back, cast your eyes back on what would have happened over the last 55 years. Several of its member states have become, of course, independent and charting their own destiny. And on the global stage, the Cold War ended. There's been the advent of a global pandemic. A war is being fought in Eastern Europe with global implications, and the world is on the cusp of the fourth industrial revolution. That is just a very short synopsis of what would have happened over the last 55 years. So many other things would have happened. Well, such vicissitudes, but the court has been steadfast in its duty of being a guardian of our jurisprudential integrity. Long may it bat on, because in the words of C.L.R. James, quote, "What do they know of cricket who only cricket know?" End quote. The court has been as deeply ingrained in our West Indian societies as cricket has been. We dare to hope, against all odds, that our cricketers emulate the court in batting on with aplomb. Thank you again, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Really appreciate your company. Again, we urge you all to like the Facebook page, engage with it as much as possible. And on that note, we say good evening. Hold it. Is it good?